What is up? What is up, YouTube? This is Dave Croft. Welcome back to a 52 Cues vlog. This week is for week 8, 2021. I've written yet another Americana tension cue, and I'm wrapping up this order. The publisher needed 15 Americana tension cues. The cue that I want to talk about here in just a few minutes is Train Cars and Prison Bars. Put the final mix and master on that and delivered the stems last week. And I promise I won't be covering just Americana tension on the channel. It's just the project that I'm in right now, and I tend to focus on one project at a time. I can't really kind of creatively multitask, or at least I feel like I don't do my best work doing that. So I tend to focus on like one cue at a time, or at least one project at a time. So these last several weeks I've been really laser focused on these tension cues with like cigar box guitar and harmonica and slide and all of that stuff. So I promise we're coming to the end of that, and in an upcoming episode or vlog, I want to talk about kind of how you push through when you're feeling creatively just empty. Because I've definitely experienced that on these Americana tension cues, and I want to talk about my process in an upcoming episode. But today, before we talk about the cue itself, like I said, which is called Train Cars and Prison Bars, I want to talk about my organizational structure that I apply to my cues. These are by no means industry standard. These are just organization that I've come up with to help facilitate delivery to the publisher, namely stems and cutdowns, especially stems. Now, if you don't know what stems are, stems is short for stereo mix or stereo master. And whenever you deliver a cue to a library, they often want a full mix with everything happening, and then they want you to provide alternate mixes or stems that represent different energy levels. So you would give them a mix without the melody, a mix with maybe no percussion, or a mix with no effects, or mix with just long sustained sounds, or maybe just the bass and the percussion, or maybe with no melody and no percussion. So it's kind of this Jenga puzzle of different versions of the cue that you need to be able to give to the client, which is all well and good. But it can get confusing when you are generating a lot of cues, or if you're in the middle and you have 15 cues and you really have to start turning these things around pretty quickly. And so organization is absolutely vital, so you don't get so turned around and you don't spend too much time printing or bouncing these stems. And so I have incorporated a color scheme. In my case, I'm using Logic, but I've incorporated a color scheme which helps me to know which stems to keep, which stems to mute out, because they are organized not necessarily by instrumentation, although that definitely is part of it. But I organize my sessions, my library, my music production, my library music cues by stem grouping. Now, if you are a seasoned professional, you might be rolling your eyes and be like, of course, but it wasn't really ever told to me. I just kind of stumbled across it, and I hope it's helpful for you. Now, the color scheme I actually use is, like I said, something that I've kind of come up with. And so my output colors are just kind of purple. They're like, those were my stereo outs and that kind of thing. I make those purple. My aux buses are brown. Any effects, so any risers, sweeps, cymbal effects, any kind of drum effects, anything that isn't necessarily instrumental, these are effects. I color those red. Any non-pitched percussion is orange. So these are going to be your drums, shakers, auxiliary percussion, not timpani and not necessarily like marimba, tubular bells, vibraphone, celeste, that kind of thing, crotales. Those would be light orange or kind of an orangey yellow. Any bass sound, any sound which is below, let's say 300, 250 hertz and below, those are colored yellow. And that includes piano, synth, pads, low strings. I separate them out into their own stem, which means I might have a piano part, which is half somewhere up here. Like that's what I have going on here. I basically have the right hand of the piano on one stem, one track, and the left hand of the piano on another track. Now, when I'm writing, well, actually, I say that now, but these days when I'm actually writing, I tend to write left hand, right hand. I'm not a pianist, so I can't do a ton of two-hand stuff all at once and not make a dog's breakfast of it. So I do absolutely left hand in its own stem, right hand in its own stem, and I find that helps with the mix, and it certainly helps with the exporting. So all of my bass sounds are in their own color, yellow. Now, any pads or sustained long notes go into their own color grouping. I color those green. Any rhythmic non-melodic sounds. So these are going to be rhythmic, like pulses. Sometimes marimba will go up in here. Any sort of like staccato strings, that kind of thing. My rhythmic non-melodic. So these aren't melodic in nature, meaning I'm not going to mute them out when I print my melody stems or when I need to mute out the melody stems. Those are going to be light blue, and then indigo would be my melodic stems. The tracks which I would mute out if they were melodic. Now sometimes, I'll have students kind of ask, how do you know what's melody and what's not? Well, a good rule of thumb to know if it's a melody is, first of all, is it playing single notes? So if we start hearing like chords, probably not melodic, and it's safe to keep into the no melody stem. But if I'm hearing sounds other than chord tones, if I'm hearing it's a single note passage, hearing sounds other than chord tones, then you might want to mute it out for the no melody stem. Now, creating stems is super easy, and I've covered it on a video before. I'll put a link to that video so that you can check it out. The link will be floating around somewhere up here. Just easy stemming, and to be honest, I can't remember in that video if I had adopted this color coding before. I don't think so. But just as a brief primer, you would set your cycle region to the entire length of the cue. You would print it from the beginning, and then you would just mute out what you don't need. Now, disclaimer, different libraries want different stems, different alternate mixes. And also, some libraries will want you to give them unmastered stems so that they can master them themselves. But this is just the quick and dirty. Just mute it. Don't change your region. Don't change your export region. Just leave it in place. Mute out the stems you don't need, and then export. So a no melody stem would look like that. A no percussion stem might look like this. If I have cymbal effects and drum effects, I tend to mute those out in the no percussion stem too. If I need a drum and bass stem, there it is. See, I can quickly look at my session and know exactly where the stem groupings are. I could even go one step further and create track stacks for these. Or buses. I could send them all to a bus in Logic. I can create a track stack, a summing stack, and boom, and here's my entire bass grouping. I tend not to get that involved in it. The color groupings keep it simple enough for me. Now, I promise you, this isn't wasted time. A little bit of organization on the front end will absolutely save you headache, save you time. The way I like to think, your future self will thank you if you do a little bit of organization so that you can export your stems, you can get them turned around, get them off to the client, and on to the next cue. So that's my color scheme. What's your color scheme? How do you organize your tracks? If you organize your tracks, if you're an orchestral composer, you might see this, and this makes your brain completely itch because it's not in score order or anything like that. But I have found, for me, putting my stems and putting my tracks in this organization has greatly helped me, especially if I need to go back and re-export stems 6 months later. Then suddenly, wow, I don't remember what the cue was. I don't remember if this is melodic or not. But in the middle of the composing process, if I do this organization, then exporting becomes a snap. So, train cars and prison bars, like I said, was the cue that I wrapped up last week in week 8. And it's kind of an ominous tension cue. The title, Train Cars and Prison Bars, comes from, well, first of all, just the imagery it conjures, of some dusty Western prison, with a sheriff with his hat down, like on the corner, kind of nodding off, maybe a toothpick, and there's some poor soul kind of sleeping it off in the jail. And also this sound kind of sounds kind of like some train clacking. All right, so just a quick rundown of the instrumentation. This is the Cymbalom by Spitfire, which they just switched over into their engine, their Spitfire engine. And I love the Cymbalom because it's kind of like a dulcimer, but it's a much kind of richer kind of sound. I believe it's the Cymbalom that was used by Hans Zimmer in the Sherlock Holmes. It's either a Cymbalom or a ukulele. I'm not sure. Either way, it's this kind of Eastern European. All right, so there's a little bit of kind of out of tune quality to it, and so this is my main melody. I love the Cymbalom here. This is a cigar box guitar, another melodic instrument, just doing kind of slide guitar business that I single recorded and threw a sample delay on that. Sometimes, I'll double track guitars, but here lately I've been liking kind of running my guitars, especially during this Americana tension, is one of the things that makes kind of Americana music sound like Americana is using folk instruments and having really high quality, big stereo, kind of sounds. Almost, I don't know, it almost sounds inauthentic. So I have found that single miking things like cigar box guitar or ukulele or even acoustic guitar, single miking, and then using a sample delay tool or plug-in here just to delay it by 10 milliseconds so it widens it out just a little bit. Here it is without. Back that up just a little bit more. And then throw the sample delay on. So it's going to delay the left side by 10 milliseconds. Again, without it. It just widens it just a little bit without it sounding like a polished. Now, I'm not nearly good enough an engineer to where I get into double miking guitars with like one, and then you have to do the math and the phase and all of that. I apologize. I can't really get into all of that. Not that I can't get into it here. I just mentally can't get my brain around it, and it makes I get really flustered and like the math involved, and I'm just not that much of an engineer. So I will single mic it, or I have a little XY mic that I will use, or I will double track guitars. So I'll record the left side once and then the right side separately and mix those together. I do that quite a lot. Next up is my clacking train tracks. This is an Omnisphere patch. It's thinking about it. And this is another unfinished patch. I tell you, I love unfinished. The Unfinished. Check him out. Amazing Omnisphere presets. And he also has like zebra presets and all these other kind of things. This is a felt piano, also by Spitfire. This is one of their another instrument which they moved onto their platform, and so the bottom, the left and right side, again, I've separated them into their own tracks, but the felt piano, just really intimate piano sound. Let me go up to the end here so you can really hear it. I still feel like the Spitfire engine is a little bit of a processor hog. I noticed it with BBC SO, and I kind of chalked it up to that library just being so intense. But I found, and I have a handful of the Spitfire plugins, the Cymbalom, the felt piano, and these Evolution strings. I feel like their engine isn't quite as svelte as the Contact engine. And Contact, obviously that's been around forever and a day, and so it's a very, very fine-tuned, well-oiled machine by now. But the Spitfire, I think, especially this is a 2015 machine, so it's getting up there. And I admittedly, it's getting up there, but yeah, it still feels a little processor hoggy. Next, I have a hurdy-gurdy. I love the hurdy-gurdy. This is from the East West, and I am a subscriber of the Composer Cloud. This is off of their raw library, and a hurdy-gurdy. If you don't know what a hurdy-gurdy is, it is a folk instrument. If you've ever seen Polar Express, I can't remember if I mentioned this on my live stream or whatever. If you watch Polar Express and when the little boy goes on top of the train and the ghost Tom Hanks is playing this instrument where he's twisting this thing, that's a hurdy-gurdy. Think of a violin strings strung over like on a box with this wheel that has kind of sandpaper on it, and you rotate it or kind of crank it, and it creates this drone. And I find it's kind of creepy, but you can invoke almost like bagpipe, Uilleann pipe type sounds. And anytime I need like a folksy, eerie, droney type sound, and I don't want to bring pipes into the party, then I'll reach for the hurdy-gurdy. Next up, I have two Evolution strings, and Evolution strings are by Spitfire, another library where they took from the Contact library and over into their own. And these are long drones which kind of evolve and change, or evolve over time. And you can create some really cool sounds really, really simply, especially when you get the mod wheel involved. And each one of these nodes represents a different articulation. So you can see like this is a fragile, delicate, so a circular bow movement with overtones, starting pure, slowly introducing vibrato. This is increasing in speed, increasing in depth and width with a dolce vibrato played with mutes. And so each one of these, and it just goes on and on and on. Now, am I going to play fast orchestral passages? Absolutely not. But for these like tensiony drones, it is money. Absolute money. So I love anytime I have eerie string drones rather, then I will reach for my evolution patches. Got another Omnisphere low bell patch here, just to give that kind of delay, synthy kind of sound. I talked about the piano. This is an orchestral sub, which I created in Logic. It's simply a sampler patch. Used to be the EXS24, but it's a sampler patch with nothing loaded. And I found that when I use a lot of orchestral sounds, then sometimes the low end doesn't really speak well. So I will throw on a sub, a sine wave. You know, this one's kind of honking away at around 50 hertz or so. And just to thicken, that's not a word, but to thicken the low end, I've got a drum pulse here, which is a drum that I recorded. It is, I think, that drum hanging up behind me. It's either that one or that one. One of those drums, I just kind of hit with a felt beater and pitched it down. Let's see, is this pitched? Yeah, so this is transposed. Here it is in its natural key. It's either that, it might be that drum, because that's a 22. I think it was, I have a 16 over here. And so then just pitched it down. Again, not to pitch match to the exact pitch that we had going on, but, and I'll show you, I pitched it down up here in Logic. So this is a regular, but I just pitched it down so it would settle into the mix a little bit. Not fine tuning. I didn't bust out a tuner and make sure that it sounded exactly in key. And then a couple of effects. This is this bowed cymbal, which I use all the time. And I believe this cymbal was a 22-inch flat ride, Constantinople flat ride. And it just kind of sounds thick, doesn't it? And then I used a rubber mallet, drenched in reverb, drenched in delay, and that gives you these little transitional. And so I'll do the bowed cymbal, transitional sounds rather. I'll do the bowed cymbal at every phrase, so every 4 bars, and I'll do the drum, the drum wail at every large phrase point. So every section. So the melody's coming in and all of that. So that is Train Cars and Prison Bars. Really enjoyed writing that cue. I'm not gonna lie, I'll be happy when I'm done writing Americana tension cues. Like I said, I have a handful of them left. It's what we worked on. We worked on an Americana tension cue for last week's music production live stream. Every Thursday, I live stream my music production process, with the exception of this Thursday. Actually, I have a gig Thursday night, so the music production live stream will be Wednesday afternoon. And the music production live stream is a benefit that I offer to my patrons. And so this is just a way for folks like you to kind of ride side saddle, folksy Western pun, ride side saddle in my. It's just to see my production process, and so last week I wrote an Americana tension cue, had a good time, folks chatting, answering questions, and so if that's something you're interested in, why don't you check out my Patreon page? I just have one tier. It's just $1. You don't have to do that. It's just an option that I make available. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe this video. It actually helps other composers find this video. You know, I used to think that like liking and subscribing was just stroking the ego of the YouTuber, but it really does help other folks find the videos. And I want to welcome all of my new subscribers. Thank you so much. We're well on our way to 1,000 subscribers, and that would be a real cool thing. If you have any questions, ask below. But I read all the comments, and I love interacting with you folks, either here on YouTube or in the Patreon page. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a stellar week 9, and I will see you next time. Until then, peace.